Welcome to another episode of Full Build Friday, where I try to build a character from a comic, game, or similar source using the baseline rules of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. These characters are built on PathBuilder 2e. If you were around for the blog last year, you may remember that I built a series of slashers for the lovely month of Spooktober. This year, I'm going to do a series of builds for the antithesis of those mask murderers by building the Mystery Incorporated gang from the Scooby-Doo franchise. Naturally leading the way for this series is the gang's leader, Fred Jones. There are a ton of incarnations of these characters and the series itself, and I'll be doing a sort of mix of these generations. I'm mainly looking to capture the general concept of the character for the build, which will of course start by setting some build goals for us. I have to admit, this more general overview can leave the goals feeling a little light, but I will try to call out choices that may reference specific interpretations of the character as they come up. Traditionally, Fred is the leader of Mystery Incorporated, and also serves as both the driver and owner of the Mystery Machine, which he shows some skill in operating. He is also the most physically capable of the gang. Upon encountering a new mystery, he often suggests searching for clues using divide and conquer methods. Aside from his work as a sleuth and amateur investigator, Fred has aspirations as an author, and has also worked as a producer, cameraman, and all-around everyman for a TV show with Daphne. Perhaps the most important aspect of Fred's character, though, is his use of convoluted traps and snares that are often meant to capture the villains, and usually do so after Shaggy and Scooby have run afoul of it. Like I said, not much to it, so let's make like a barn and get building. As it is the case for all these builds, we will start with the ABCs, the ancestry, background, and class for this particular character. Naturally, Fred uses the human ancestry, with the skilled heritage to become trained in athletics. I would have picked crafting, but I needed him to be expert in crafting earlier than this feature would have allowed. Mystery Incorporated has had their ups and downs as a team, but they still excel at working together, which leads to taking cooperative nature for Fred's first level ancestry feat. There are absolutely a couple different interpretations for the background of Mystery Incorporated, and that does depend on which show you're looking at, but I wanted to go with Bounty Hunter for Fred, representing his roaming about to solve mysteries and capture criminals. This makes him trained in survival as well as illegal lore skill, and he also gains Experience Tracker as a skill feat. This build will focus on utilizing traps, and the best class to facilitate that is the Ranger. With a team focused on apprehending criminals rather than combating them, I settled on Outwit for Fred's Hunter's Edge, allowing him to overcome enemies through wit and wiles rather than combat prowess. Using the bonus from this feature, Fred will also take the Monster Hunter class feat to help identify enemies. I'll admit, part of taking this is the fact that the remaining Ranger class feats at first level don't really fit the less combative nature of Mystery Incorporated. Additionally, as a Ranger, Fred is trained in nature and survival, but has already trained in the latter from his background. So instead, he'll become trained in occultism. The party often deals with spirits and other oddities, and this will help him identify such creatures, or if they're just people in masks. He will also become trained in acrobatics, crafting, diplomacy, society, stealth, and thievery. As the burliest member of the gang, Fred prioritizes strength, and then has a focus on intelligence to facilitate his crafting and ability to recall knowledge about threats. For his second level, Fred will take United Assault. This is a fun feat that is a little bit more aggressive than most of his other assortments of feats will be, but it allows him to work together with his team. In what might be a strange twist, I would actually say his skill feat this level is more important than his class feat, Snare Crafting. This grants Fred the ability to craft snares and gives him a few formulae, which he can always learn more of on his own. Obviously, his first skill increase will go towards crafting, netting him expert in the skill, and then he'll take toughness for his third level general feat. These extra hit points are simply handy in allowing him to mix it up in melee. With that skill increase at third level, Freddy can take Snare Specialist as his fourth level class feat. This will grant him new snare formulas as he increases crafting, but more importantly, grants him a number of snares that he can make in a day without spending resources or additional time on them, so he always has some handy. From his skill feats, I would take Specialty Crafting and try to argue for a snare specialty, likely settling on woodworking or something similar if that former option is not allowed. At 5th level, none of the ancestry feats really jump out at me. I specifically avoided taking Sense Allies, because sometimes Fred will loose a trap when Shaggy and Scoob are still in the way, which doesn't quite fit the idea of that feat. Instead, he'll take General Training to take a fleet, allowing him to better flee from monsters. Due to his heritage, his athletics increases to expert, and then he'll apply this level skill increase to society, bumping it up to expert as well to better identify adversaries. An increase to intelligence also sees him becoming trained in arcana. Fred has time to prepare his traps even while hiding and running from a monster, and at a 6th level we'll try to represent that with quick snares, allowing him to more swiftly assemble these traps. As the most physically capable member of the party, who has shown at least some interest in wrestling, I decided to give Fred the Titan Wrestler skill feat. I do want to mention, at this point, aside from trying to capture the physical capabilities of the character, one of the reasons I have a slight focus on athletics is so that Fred can potentially toss and shove enemies into his snares. This is also why I have equipped him with a Warhammer, allowing him to make use of its shove trait. Fred is usually the first to suggest searching for clues, and he does so himself with the Thorough Search General feat at 7th level. The first of his skills to be increased to Master will obviously be crafting. If Fred wants to make use of the snares and traps that he crafts, he's going to need powerful snares at 8th level in an attempt to keep their DCs competitive. With his investment in crafting, and given the magical nature of this setting that we have to acknowledge and accept that is part of this build, Fred can take Crafter's Appraisal, so that he can use his crafting skill to identify magical items. Fred's 9th level Ancestry feat builds out of his cooperative nature into Cooperative Soul, which makes it impossible for him to fail 8 checks in skills in which he's expert. This level also sees him increase his athletics to Master Proficiency. At 10th level I took Hazard Finder, since I figured that Fred's expertise in traps and snares should extend in identifying and defending against them. Impeccable Crafter builds out of Fred's specialty crafting skill feat, making him even better at putting together traps. Another increase to intelligence at this level also sees Fred become trained in religion, since many of the monsters they supposedly face are ghosts or other types of undead. While I imagine Fred will generally want to keep his hands free to make use of his athletics, Shield Block as his 11th level general feat also provides him some additional options. His Outwit Hunter's Edge provides him with the same type of bonus, meaning that a shield doesn't do much good against his hunted prey unless he's specifically looking to reduce damage with Shield Block. He also bumps Society up to Master for his skill increase. With his 12th level class feat, Lightning Snares, Fred becomes even faster at setting up his traps. By my understanding of how these snares and everything around them works, this means that he could rig up a trap with a single action, try to shove an enemy into it with another action, and then potentially still have an action to use against them. If the snare he created puts the enemy in difficult terrain, then they're also flat-footed to him thanks to Nature's Edge from his 9th level class feature. From his skill feats, Fred grabs Inventor so that he can potentially whip up some new traps all on his own. Group Aid at 13th level simply further travels down the road of making Fred an even better team player, though it is somewhat limited in its use. He'll take a skill increase to Occultism, which puts it at Expert. Fred's 14th level class feat is a little dependent on the setting this build is being used in, but I personally like the Trick Driver Dedication, representing Fred's ownership and operation of the Mystery Machine. Admittedly, this is coming in a little late, but better late than never. And he'll go straight from taking this archetype to grabbing a skill feat provided by it. Push It! This allows him to coax more speed out of the Mystery Machine, which has proved useful every now and then. By 15th level, Fred can also coax some speed out of his allies themselves with his Pick Up the Pace general feat. This could be used for extra speed to flee from a foe or chase down a lead. The first skill to make it to Legendary will of course be Fred's crafting. The man's a master at manufacturing snares. As mentioned, this build is pretty dedicated to Fred's ability as a trapper, which means it shouldn't come as a surprise when he takes Ubiquitous Snares at 16th level. Because if the first half a dozen don't work, he's going to need some backups. For his skill feat, Craft Anything doesn't exactly fit Fred, but with his legendary crafting, I didn't want to pass up on the chance to take it. I'm a bit happier taking Heroic Presence on Fred at 17th level for his Ancestry feat than I was Conqueror, and I can even envision him laying out a plan or giving his friends a pep talk, but I still wish there were more options for Ancestry feats at this level. Instead of going straight to Athletics for the next skill increase, Fred will get Occultism up to Master Proficiency. A decent portion of this build is about working with the gang of Mr. Incorporated, and Fred can continue that with Warden's Boon as his 18th level class feat, allowing him to share his edge with his allies. That mastery in Occultism allows Fred to take Disturbing Knowledge, which is kind of me running out of skill feats to pick from at this point, but debuffing enemies is always useful. Fred prefers taking his time when it comes to searching for clues, but sometimes you gotta be quick, which is where Expeditious Search comes in for his 19th level general feat. He'll also finally increase Athletics to Legendary. With the Ubiquitous Snares that Fred took earlier, He can also take impossible snares for his capstone feat, because I am dedicated to this whole shtick. This allows him to put together snares without even having to spend his refreshing resources to do so, turning this teen into a terror-trapping turret. I can't recall Fred ever power sliding the Mystery Machine. He certainly could have, but he did at least pull this stunt on the live-action movie on a motorcycle. And you know what? That's good enough for me. But with that, it is time to wrap up this mystery of a build with a quick review on what we've put together. Fred is a skilled human ranger with the Outwit Hunter's edge and the Bounty Hunter background. As the leader of Mystery Incorporated, a band of traveling mystery solvers, Fred excels at working with his team through Cooperative Soul, United Assault, and Warden's Boon, while also being a skilled investigator with options such as Thorough Search or Expeditious Search. As a primary operator of the Mystery Machine, Fred makes use of the Trick Driver dedication and its Push It and Power Slide skill feats. Titan Wrestler and his investments in athletics help keep him physically capable and will let him hurl enemies into the snares that he is best known for. Snares that he creates through the likes of his ranger feats, with standouts including powerful snares, lightning snares, and impossible snares. This snooping sleuth searches for sneaking suspects, spotting schemes and subterfuge while setting snares to solve the scenario. Let me know what you think of this build and what other characters you might like to see in the comments down below. You can check out the blog for a deeper breakdown of the build, which also includes items and suggestions for a free archetype game. That, along with the Monster Monday Twitter and Discord, are linked in the description below. Thanks for watching and have a fantastic Friday.